is it so dark? Arcane is a story of twos. Of two cities. Of two sisters. Of two brothers and fathers. And of two friends. What do I mean, a story of twos? I mean, look at all these characters. I mean that any captivating story allures through its tensions, and tensions are born in opposition. It is primarily through the two cities and through these characters that they create the central tensions that guide the story. Arcane is a masterful craft of production in animation, music, and narrative. Each element is married to the other. Every detail that contributes to your overall experience of Arcane finds very little of its visibility in your rational recognition of it. There are too many details, too many layers. Perhaps, for example, you didn't immediately catch some of these visual parallels. Even if you didn't catch these moments, rationally connecting the dots, they are still connected in your overall experience. If you look at a sunset, you may focus on the sun itself, but that doesn't mitigate the passive ambiance of the beautiful colors in the clouds surrounding the sun. No viewer truly understands precisely what it is that they are experiencing. Much the same, no true artist really understands precisely what it is that they are creating. They are often controlled as much by their vision as they control it. Finding the proper balance in this duality is mysterious in the creation of art, as it is in our own human experience. A balance of control and surrender, order and chaos. I believe that a story must reflect reality in any or all of three ways in order to resonate with its viewer. In relevance, nostalgia, or potential. In other words, as reality stands, as it once was, or as it really could be. The stories I love most lay bare the beautiful, ugly tragedies and paradoxes of the human experience, leaving the answers open to the meditation of the viewer. I haven't witnessed a show nearly so successful in all of this as Arcane. Here are my meditations on the brilliance of Arcane through its conscious use of duality. I've been using the word duality a lot. What does it mean? The definition I'm going to run with is an instance of opposition or contrast between two concepts or aspects of something. I want to begin with the most obvious and broad duality, the upper and lower city. We are immediately thrown into the classic, relevant polarization between the upper and lower classes, with all that entails, where the poor reasonably and unreasonably project their suffering onto the higher, and the privileged do the same to the lower. This all manifests in an exponentially growing loss of mutual understanding. Despite this impending sense of doom as we see things getting worse, we are also prepared for Arcane to deliver the next powerful moment, where two fractal worlds momentarily touch, and the truth is mutually understood. Understood in a touch in peace, or a touch in violence. Arcane does not shy away from tragedy, trauma, suicide, war, death. The story reaches so deep into the sea of human potential, where both the heroes and monsters live, and finds its tragic elements in showing just how indistinguishable the two can be. Identity is beyond complex. Silco was right when he said,
"There's a monster inside all of us."
But Vander was also right when he told Vi,
You've got a good heart. Don't ever lose it.
"There's so many things stored up in each one of us, unresolved and conflicting. What do we identify with? Even if we recognize the monstrous parts, what's to say we won't harm ourselves more trying to kill it alone? There is a risk going into the monster's lair to take back what it has stolen from you, because you might awaken it. But there is the ever-increasing risk of becoming indistinguishable from the monster if you cower from it. We see this complexity in the character's constant failure to navigate the blurry line that rides between hesitancy and confidence. Jace and Victor were too confident and naive in their pursuits.
In the pursuit of great, we fail to do good.
But when too hesitant, one might lose power and lose control of something crucial. It is in this duality of hesitancy and confidence that much of the two cities' conflict is born. We begin the story with the crucial moment of development for Silco and Vander, who become opposites in a sense. Vander sees what his previous confidence and efforts to gain power got him, and his people, and develops a complete hesitancy to fight on that front. He instead sacrifices the potential of that ambition for the fight to hold on to and protect what he still has. Silco turns out the opposite. He sees what has been done, and it further fuels his confident disdain not only for Piltover, but now for his brother. Vander becomes willing to sacrifice the ideal, to make the best out of what is before him, and Silco becomes willing to sacrifice all that is before him to pursue the ideal.
I'd like to let you in on a very important secret I learned when I was about your age, boy. You see, power, real power, doesn't come to those who were born strongest, or fastest, or smartest. No, it comes to those who will do anything to achieve it.
As is the nature of the Undercity, this conflict is much messier than its mirror image above. We have instead ideological, political conflicts of hesitancy and confidence, tradition and revolution, ethics and prosperity. At the same time, Vi is doing something dangerous and illegal to make an effort towards power and change. We see the very person she raided doing the same. Jace harbors illegal, dangerous materials in an attempt towards revolutionary discovery and change. Their mutual dramas meet and get them both into trouble. Much the same as Silco, Vi is fueled in her anger towards Piltover.
We need to fight back. And if you won't, I will.
I've heard this kind of talk before.
Much the same as Vander, Jace loses ambition at the knowledge of loss. What follows is that despite their similar drama, Vi and Jace are pushed in very different directions. Vander takes Vi to the iconic place of conflict, the bridge, telling her,
I led us across this bridge, thinking things could change. If I hadn't, your parents would still be alive.
Vi remembers why they don't fight and loses her confidence, asking,
What are we gonna do?
Jace instead begins at the pinnacle of hesitancy, the hesitancy to even live any longer. As he is about to give up, Victor gives him confidence in his ambitions. Victor was where he was because he was willing to fight. Both reveal the unified patterns of the human experience, yet brilliantly reveal the complexity of the answer, as they both end up where the other isn't. This isn't to say that there is never an actual answer, but to emphasize the importance of individual context in determining the truth. Confidence begs the important question: to what extent are you actually ready to engage with the chaos to make change? Is it worth it? Do you understand the whole picture of what you're engaging with? Hesitancy begs the question: to what extent are you willing to patiently endure chaos to make the correct decision at the correct time? How much opportunity is passing you by as you wait? Is your hesitancy wisdom or cowardice? The intensity of these sorts of questions can break a person. Outside of the dilemmas themselves, the weight of living in constant contemplation, constant tension, can become a more crucial problem. We often need distractions from ourselves to center ourselves. We need people, rituals, and habits to fall back on when the toll of our mind and heart is too much to bear. If we don't, we begin acting in fear. Jinx is the central image of what happens when one is consumed in fear and insecurity. But the problem lies one step deeper than the need for just any distraction, because humans are easily capable of that. The most central tragedy of Arcane and of the contemporary West at large are the types of distractions we regularly use to cope, because they further prove to fragment our identities. There are two dual shrines, two towers in Arcane that broadly reveal the sort of poisonous distractions that reign within each of the two cities. Beginning with the upper city, we have the tall Hexgate Tower that peers over Piltover, representing the Western ideals of prosperity in scientific, technological advancement for the expansion of possibility and power. There's a reason that there's the archetype of the mad scientist, obsession and addiction with one's own intellectual creations and the godlike powers it grants. We see what this sort of distraction can do through Victor's overindulgent passion in the Hex Core. The semi-explicit scene where Jace sleeps with Mel, while Victor's blood merges with the Hex Core, is a crucial, brilliant step the story writers took to advance the narrative. Jace's downfall becomes about how malleable he is, specifically through Mel. One might even call him malleable. It is really Mel who's the revolutionary, with the visionary under her thumb. The crucial moment he slept with her, he was bound to someone he barely knew, leaving his intense societal power to the whims of Mel. Contrary to popular opinion, sexuality isn't casual in nature. For better or for worse, it has the power to bind souls. This scene is brilliantly juxtaposed with Victor shooing the beauty of the feminine to lose a part of himself in his union with the Hex Core. They both lose something in the process. Jace his autonomy, and Victor his greatest advocate for the best parts of himself. Oh, and ultimately Heimerdinger. Though some may classify him as the party pooper, the boring limiter of potential, he was right about most everything in the end, and we find in his interactions with the Undercity and Echo that his heart is truly for his people. The shrine of the Undercity is Silco, specifically his eye. I definitely cried while watching this show, and it wasn't when Vi and Jinx first had their reunion. It was watching the disfigured people in the lowest places of the Undercity acting like beasts, helplessly addicted to the very things destroying them. Though the tragedies of the upper city carried their intensity, I was most entwined with the tragedies below. The tower, as previously stated, represents something less abstract, Silco's influence. Though the characters in the scene I cried from were more minor, the sheer shame and ugliness they felt through the perversion of Silco was like a window into the broken heart of Jinx. Silco may not be responsible for the pain Vi leaving caused her, or the improper leadership that may have led to Powder's youthful recklessness and trauma, but he is entirely responsible for sustaining her as Jinx and pushing her further into total insanity. Most crucially in his selfish decision to keep her alive using the demonic lifeblood Shimmer, completing the symbolism of his anti-baptism. In traditional Christianity, baptism is the means to enter into the chaos of waters, death, and rise above them in the name of life, reenacting the resurrection, leaving behind the old man and taking a new name. Silco baptized her, however, to bring Powder and all of her innocence into death, resurrecting her in a monstrous way. The Walking Dead. So what are the positive examples of distraction in Arcane? And what do I mean when I say that the problem of distraction is central to our modern life? To answer these final questions, I want to look at quite possibly my favorite character, Echo. We don't get a very complete sense of his story, what exactly brought him to where he is in the latter half of the show, but we know him by his virtues. When one is burdened beyond imagination by suffering and trauma, they can either ultimately be refined by it, rising above, or it can scar their heart, damaging the most central parts of themselves, fracturing their ability to love. They begin to despise themselves and the world around them. Whether or not they may be justified, the inevitable projecting of brokenness continues the descent of the world. Apathy and despair are at the heart of our attraction to distractions that sustain or even bring us further into weakness. Any modern form of dopamine addiction, drugs, entertainment, pornography, gaming, social media, can and often does negatively fill the void of needed distraction. Regardless of what it does to us, it is understandable. As society descends deeper, signs of hope diminish, and hope is at the heart of our attraction to that which heals us. There's actually one last shrine, perhaps the most important one. The tree of life between the two polarized worlds. The icon of potential and hope for the sacrificially willing. Circumstantially, Echo has the most similar story to Powder. They were friends, who were developmentally around the same age, who both idolized Vi, and lost everything through the most foundational periods of their life. Yet they arrived as opposites. We see in one of the greatest scenes of the show, where they have their fight, that Jinx is ultimately willing to sacrifice her own life to the detriment of all around her. Echo dedicates himself to a very different sense of sacrifice. Everything within himself for the life of those around him. This is the central place I wanted to arrive at with this video, because it is at the heart of my focus on duality. Focusing on the tremendously difficult dual nature of life, recognizing its complexity, is the first step toward healing. The burden of shame can often lead to shamelessness. Without hope, the existential burdens of life are too much, and sometimes simply knowing you aren't alone in your confusion is enough to begin healing. But if you're weak through all the addictive distractions you regulate your pain through, those moments of grace will diminish quicker than you'd like. I'm often desperate for life, which is why I have to write when something touches me, like this show. Despite my convictions, I often turn to the wrong sorts of distractions. I encourage you to face the complexity directly, in so much as you can, through sacrificial responsibility, as it will not only heal you, but begin to heal the people around you.